summer day. The place, Lakefront Airport, New Orleans. The story about one of the most deceptive phenomena to plague a pilot, density altitude. This is Harry Bliss, a successful freelance photographer, a private pilot with 473 hours to his credit.
Thanks, Charlie.
You bet.
Hey, Charlie, give me that case there, will you?
Sure.
Thanks.
Sure is a lot of gear, Mr. Bliss.
Well, that's all of it, Charlie.
You know, I never knew it took so much equipment before just to take pictures.
Is that right?
This is Lois Bliss, Harry's partner, writer and wife. They've been commissioned by a national magazine to do a series of illustrated articles on the West.
Honey, you want these pamphlets and things?
No, all the charts and stuff we'll need are on the plane.
Think I'll take some anyhow, in case I run out of something to read.
Women.
Well, be careful now. Remember, you've got a big load on board.
You're not referring to me now, are you, Charlie?
Oh, no. Just your luggage and your equipment.
Why? You think we're overloaded?
Well,
Don't worry, honey. I checked. And we're carrying exactly what the manual said we can.
Fine.
remember, Mr. Bliss, it's just a machine.
Yeah, but what a machine. With this baby, we can go anywhere we want to. Well, thanks for everything, Charlie.
You bet. See you when you get back.
Bye, Carol.
Goodbye now.
So our story begins. Before it's over, we hope you and Harry Bliss will never forget it.
Well, what do you think?
That what?
Our new airplane, what else?
Oh, I think it's great. It's got much more room, even with all the equipment.
Yeah? You know, we're carrying 3 times what we did before, and we're just up to gross weight for this baby.
A common assumption made by many experienced pilots, but wrong. You see, although Harry has made every effort not to exceed the gross weight specified by the manufacturer, he has forgotten to take into account the fact that the performance figures for his aircraft are based on standard conditions at sea level.
Indicated airspeed on initial climb.
92 miles per hour.
Takeoff. Ground run of 700 feet to clear a 50-foot obstacle at the end of runway. Rate of climb 1,200 feet per minute at end of runway at sea level. Absolute ceiling 20,000 feet.
And with performance figures like that, we can fly anywhere.
But such is not the case. It's true enough, flying over a state like Louisiana, which is at sea level, at that altitude, the performance figures quoted will generally hold up. However, taking off and landing at airports located at varying elevations above sea level will produce a very different set of conditions. 6 hours and 1 refueling stop later, Harry and Lois arrive at Denver, Colorado. The airport, 1 mile above sea level. The weather, a little cool. Harry's landing, a little fast, but routine.
Say, there goes one of those new model Bonanzas we were just talking about. I'm going to go get a better look. See you later, Pete.
Hi.
Hello, Captain Marlowe. I'm with Continental Airlines.
I'm Harry Bliss. This is my wife, Lois.
Captain.
Boy, this certainly is a beautiful plane you've got here. Mind if I look around?
Oh, go right ahead, Captain.
Thank you.
Of course, it isn't as big and elaborate as the ones you fly, but she has everything in an aircraft I've ever wanted.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Do you fly, Mrs. Bliss?
No, I leave that to my husband.
You got a lot of room back there. see you folks are from New Orleans. Where are you headed?
We're on a photographic assignment to cover the West.
First time in the high country?
As a matter of fact, it is, isn't it, honey?
Uh-huh.
But we sure love the scenery.
How does your plane perform at this altitude with a full load?
Well, it has a ceiling of 20,000 feet and enough power to take us anywhere we want to go.
Maybe so. But I find, under the right set of circumstances, the air can be mighty tricky, even with the big jets I fly.
Is that right?
I'm going to be running along. Mr. Bliss? Mrs. Bliss?
Jack Marlowe.
Oh, say, if you're planning to travel in areas that you're not familiar with, I suggest you talk to the airport operators about local conditions in their areas.
Thank you, Captain.
Not at all. All right.
Well, honey, you usually do that, don't you?
Honey, don't worry about a thing. This baby has more than enough power to take us anywhere we want to go.
You're the boss.
Okay.
His takeoff from Denver, apparently routine. A little long, perhaps. But Harry didn't notice it on this unusually cool day.
1 cubic foot of warm air is less dense than a cubic foot of cold air. Oh, I'm reading Private Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. Ever read it?
Oh, yeah.
Listen to this. In Denver on a cold day, a small plane may take off with a 1,000-foot run, whereas on a hot day, the air may be so thin that the plane is unable to leave the ground within the space of the available runway. Well, how come?
Density altitude.
And like some pilots, Harry knew the term.
Well, what exactly is density altitude?
Well, do you remember when we were on that ski assignment last winter in the Alps? How difficult it was to breathe?
Oh, yeah, the air was so thin, I remember.
And do you recall when we drove out this way on that rodeo assignment last fall? How the car acted?
The higher we drove, the less power we had.
Well, the air was thin. It affected the car's performance. Air affects a plane the same way.
Are you saying the air is so thin up here we have less power?
Yeah. The propeller doesn't have as much air to bite. The wings can't create as much lift, and the engine doesn't have as much air to breathe.
Well, what are we doing up here then?
Enjoying ourselves. That's why I insisted on a more powerful plane. And with this baby, we can fly anywhere we want to.
Really?
You read the manual. It's got a ceiling way above anything we're going to fly over, or for that matter, land at or take off from.
Harry's next stop, Gunnison, Colorado. Elevation 7,667 feet above sea level. The temperature 46 degrees, unusually cold for summer. With a 20-knot wind to slow him down, Harry Bliss lands with runway to spare. However, the following day, Harry finds a different set of conditions, not entirely in his favor.
Harry, why are we climbing so slowly?
I haven't added all the power.
With all the power added, Harry's rate of climb will be only 350 feet per minute, quite a bit slower than 1,200 feet per minute under standard conditions at sea level. The reason? The air temperature today, 20 degrees warmer than yesterday. Harry realizes something is not right, but like some pilots, he can't always sort it out.
Are we backtracking?
I thought we'd stop at Leadville. Want to try something?
What?
Well, Leadville has the highest altitude airport in the United States. If we can land and take off from there, we can do the same anywhere.
Leadville Airport, the highest altitude airport in the United States.
Where's the airport?
It's over on this side. There, see it?
Oh, I see.
Elevation 9,927 feet. Length of runway 4,800 feet. Temperature cold, 40 degrees. The wind very light from the north at 5 knots. And with conditions such as they are, Harry makes it without any trouble. The takeoff proved to be just as easy. Oblivious to the part played by a relatively low density altitude, Harry now thinks he can handle any airport anywhere. next leg of the journey, Monument Valley, Utah.
Honey, give me the camera, will you? I can't wait to get down there and get started. Everywhere you look, there's a picture.
Monument Valley. Elevation, 5,192 feet. Length of dirt runway, 3,000 feet. The temperature, 88 degrees. The wind, calm. Makes a common mistake. Overlooking the relative ground speed, Harry comes in with extra airspeed and a bit too high. As a result, he touched down a little long and fast.
Boy, this is great. We can get a million pictures here.
Is that?
Honey, you remember that old Indian pottery we saw at the museum? Well, I found some.
Are you kidding? It must weigh a ton. We can't carry that extra weight.
Well, sure we can. I figure we've used enough fuel to allow for the extra weight. Darn it! Of all the lousy luck.
Phew, it's hot.
Where?
And once again, it's time to leave. However, this time, conditions are not exactly in Harry's favor. The temperature, 100 degrees.
The altitude here is less than it was at Leadville. A little too much downwind, I guess.
But with all the power on, Harry barely picks up enough airspeed to climb out of the ground effect. Next stop, Page, Arizona.
Honey, I'm going to line up a chopper and pilots for tomorrow.
Yeah?
Why don't you find us a place to stay tonight, huh?
Okay.
Get closer to that arch! Hey, I can't get any pictures like this.
Density altitude affects all aircraft. Hovering under these conditions was impossible. Destination in sight. Tahoe, California, elevation 6,263 feet.
There it is. For a minute there, I thought we were lost.
When in doubt, always follow the railroad tracks.
That's why I thought we were lost. There aren't any.
Well, it's sure good to see water and green trees again. Boy, is it a lovely day.
It sure is. What a beautiful airport.
Elevation, 6,263 feet. Because of the effects of atmospheric pressure and temperature, the present air density at this airport is equivalent to an altitude of 8,500 feet.
Honey, the reservations are okay, and I've got a car.
Listen, I've been reading this density altitude sign. Don't you think you ought to check it before you leave?
Yeah, okay. Where'd you get them?
Up at Tunnel Meadows.
Tunnel Meadows? Where's that?
It's up in the mountains, about 200 miles from here.
What's the best way to get there?
Well, I fly. There's an 1,800-foot landing strip that just happens to be right alongside of the trout stream.
Hey, great. How high is it?
9,100 feet. It's not listed on any charts, but it's about 20 miles south of Mount Whitney.
Man, you know, I've dreamed of the day I could catch trout like these. I'm sure glad I bumped into you. Thanks.
My pleasure.
Harry.
Never seems to learn.
There it is.
Looks kind of small, doesn't it?
Harry's never been so eager to land anywhere before. As usual, his approach, high and fast. This time, nothing is in his favor. Altitude, 9,100 feet. Temperature in the high 70s. The 1,800 feet of runway quickly pass under him.
Harry, let's get out of here.
With full power on, his rate of climb barely 350 feet per minute.
over there. There's an airport. Let's land and calm down a little bit.
Howdy, folks. Can I help you?
Say, what kind of airport you guys got around here?
Sounds like you two tried to get into Tunnel Meadows.
That's right, we did.
How do you know?
Well, for one thing, the fishing lures gave you away. You're not the only one to land here after Tunnel Meadows.
It's the darndest place I've ever seen. I've landed at higher altitude airports before. What's so special about Tunnel Meadows?
Well, that's a long story. Why don't we go sit in the shade, have a cold drink, and talk it over?
Well, I could sure use one right now.
Here we are. Make yourself comfortable. You know, you couldn't have picked the worst possible time to go in there, even if you tried.
What's so bad about 2 o'clock in the afternoon?
Well, if I've calculated correctly, I'll bet the density altitude must have been about 13,000 feet.
There's that word again.
Well, how do you figure that?
Well, don't you have one of these computers?
I guess we left it at home.
Well, it pays to have it with you all the time. It's handy and simple to use. You know, in order to take off, a plane must produce lift. And to produce lift, it must have a certain forward flying speed or have the wind blowing against it.
So far, I'm with you.
The propeller must produce its proper pull or thrust, and the power developed must be sufficient to turn the propeller the desired number of revolutions. Now, as you probably know, the performance specifications for most small planes are based on standard conditions at sea level, as indicated in your flight manual.
I get it. What you're saying is, under the temperature and elevation, or the conditions that existed, I couldn't expect my plane to perform as I was trying to get it to do.
That's right. There's nothing wrong with your plane. The manufacturer built in a certain performance, and you can't expect more from any plane than the manufacturer designed it for.
That's where I goofed. When you have a high temperature and a high elevation and a low pressure system over the area and maybe a little moisture, you have all the variables that make up density altitude.
Absolutely. Temperature, pressure, altitude, and moisture make up density altitude. Your computer will help you determine it, regardless of your altitude.
You know, we're lucky. If conditions had been other than what they were at all of our other stops, oh boy, we'd have been in real trouble.
That's right. Never let the performance you get from your plane when the temperature is below standard lull you into a false sense of security. Watch out for those warm days when they come around. Check your density altitude to be sure of your actual performance.
But if you have to take off and climb from a field with a high temperature and a high density altitude, what do you do?
Well, leave early in the morning or late in the afternoon when the air cools. Avoid trying to take off or land or climb between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. The situation grows more critical between those hours. You know, it's even possible for you to run into a condition where the density altitude is higher than the ceiling of your aircraft.
That's what the helicopter pilot was trying to tell me. Well, I'll be. You know something? I'd still like to go after those golden trout.
Oh, come on, Harry.
You fly in there?
Oh, sure, I fly it regularly. I have a contract with the Forest Service to take their men and supplies up there several times a week.
Would you take us? I'd be glad to pay you.
That won't be necessary. I've been wanting to go fishing up there myself.
What type of a plane do you fly into Tunnel Meadows?
Well, come on, I'll show you. Well, here she is.
You must be kidding. After what we went through in our new one?
Well, yes, I guess maybe I am. However, I flew this bird in there for 20 years. She's my pride and joy.
Well, she's a beauty.
Okay, no offense. Look, so I can see how it should be done. Will you fly us in there in our Bonanza?
Okay. Like I said before, your plane is just fine. Once you get to know the ins and outs of mountain flying, you'll be able to make Tunnel Meadows yourself. Now, I suggest that we leave the first thing in the morning and be sure to pack a good lunch. We may have to wait around a bit for the temperature to cool off before we take off again.
Anything you say.
Oh, and one more thing. Don't take on any more fuel and Let's get rid of some of that baggage.
Sure thing.
The temperature at Tunnel Meadows the next morning, 50 degrees. The wind, southwest at 12 knots. With the density altitude performance computed, Otis shows Harry how.
Sure is easy when you know how.
Yeah. When you're flying an area that you're not familiar with, it always pays to take along an experienced pilot, at least once, before you try it yourself, especially in mountain country.
Well, I guess I just got a little overconfident.
Well, you're not alone. A lot of pilots make the same mistakes, especially regarding density altitude. They seem to feel it's something that only happens to the other guy.
Look at that nut trying to land here at this hour. Here, I'll be right back. Hi there. You okay? I'm all right.
And when I finally got it on the ground, the only thing I could think to do was to keep it on the ground and brake to a stop.
Well, you were lucky this time. Density altitude didn't get you.
What's density altitude?
Well, the temperature is way above normal.